All right, welcome everyone to this Force Friday. Today, I have a special treat for you. We have a special guest. It seemed like last time we met, it went really, really well to have one of our mentees on and to share with you, what Joachim last time was working on, right? So I thought this week what we would do is bring on another student of ours. Hold on a second, trying to find my, oh my God, like technical difficulties. Hold on a second. Where is, oh, there it is. I couldn't find my, my Zoom link. There it is. I wanted to introduce everyone to Cassandra. So how you doing, Cassandra? Thank you for coming on today.
Good. Do great. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Thank you very much. How about you, Swenley?
Good. Excited. As a fellow character designer, I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah.
So let's go for it.
Lots and lots of character work for you guys to see today. I'm super excited about having Cassandra on. She and I have been working together for some time now, a few years. And you didn't come in with zero skill. I think, as you said before, I mean, was it the academy? You went to one of the art schools before I met you, right?
Yeah, I went to Academy of Art for I think a year and a half, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then how did you get to me again? What led you to finding drawingforce.com and to mentorship?
Well, I actually had your book. I think I had the animal drawing, force drawing book, and I thought it was really cool. But I actually was just Googling like for an art mentorship or coach because I was trying to get a comic going, and every time I'd start up, I'd like get discouraged or I just couldn't get a flow of things. My mom's like, you should probably get a coach or have someone help you with this. So I actually Googled and you came up, like, oh, I know this guy, I know the book. So
it's the same guy.
Yeah.
He's doing animals and he's coaching, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. That was pretty clever of your mom, right? I know your mom a little bit, right? So I know she's into coaches as well. So it's great that she suggested that from a drawing standpoint, and it's been great working with you. And I think you bring up a really interesting point, which is mentorship is not just purely the skill side of things, but I think it helps for us to get stuff done, right? There's many of you out there, I'm sure, that similar to Cassandra have your own projects you want to work on. And it's tough, it's tough to just do it on your own and to have the drive, the ambition, the motivation to get through the pitfalls of it and to keep going is pretty challenging, and we've gone through that on yours, but in general, I'd say you've done pretty well. I have other students who are on projects and it's a roller coaster ride, right? I mean, I've been on my own projects where it's a roller coaster ride. So, yeah, so I think to your point, I think it's a huge benefit is just having somebody help you and support you, So let's go take a look, right? Let's go take a look at Photoshop here and let's get started. So those of you that are here, of course, feel free to put any questions or comments in the chat that you might have for Cassandra, myself, or Swenley while we're talking, and thank you for coming. And everything obviously that we teach is here at drawingforce.com. That's where Cassandra found us, right? And that's where the mentorship is all set up. If you like what we're talking about on this channel, then please hit the subscribe button. And if you're as lazy as I am, you'll hit the bell, make sure it notifies you automatically instead of having to remember. So let's get to it, right? So this starts taking us way back to the beginnings of Cassandra and I working together. And you can see that she's going through what everybody else goes through, which is gravity guides and skating, right? Trying to get better at the line. You always did a great job at blind drawing, I have to say, because first of all, we could tell it's blind because his body parts are all over the place. So a little bit of that going on, but also the truth of it, I really appreciate, not only of it being blind, but that you did it blindly and still was looking for force, right? And that's really awesome. I think that's one of the challenges to the blind drawing. So these are really great. So those of you that are here and you're in premium or basic, your standard membership or mentorship, these are great blind drawings, right? I get that question all the time. Like, what does a good look like? This is what good looks like, right? And then we start moving into the 50-50s and the traditionals until, you know, you get yourself all the way down here. So you picked up pretty quickly. I think I remember, and this is going way back, but I remember, I think your learning curve at the start was pretty darn fast. You know, it was more about like making sure you knew the templates really well and you went to the right locations at the right times in the body and kind of like ironing out the bumps, you know, the unique moments in the figure that might, you know, take you down the wrong road, right? Mm. Anything particular you remember from our start?
Yeah, well, because I'd never drawn figures like with the force drawing method. I always like kind of, I think, tried to chisel them. And I think I really loved the force drawing method so much because you kind of weave them together. And I think once I could see like, you know, the S torso, like from the back going to the stomach, like, oh, I can see it. I think it was easier to start seeing it like in figures everywhere and like the legs and stuff like that. I loved it too because I could draw so much faster.
Yeah, faster is a big thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great note too. I think that one of the sort of fringe benefits to the approach is, you know, once you have answers, you know what the answers are. It doesn't take long to draw. The act of drawing doesn't take long. It's the act of thinking that takes long and figuring things out, right? And once you know where to go, you see the system, you can get it done really quickly, you know. You know, and some students will ask me, this is a good thing for you guys to be aware of. Some people ask like, well, so what? Who cares if I could draw faster? Well, you know, if it's for yourself or for your job, if there's one thing none of us can control, it's time, right? So if like in Cassandra's case, she's trying to ramp up on a comic book, instead of sitting on one pose and trying to figure out how that character is going to stand and it taking you 15 minutes, you know, you could do that in 2 minutes and go, I don't like that pose. I'm going to change it. I'm going to try this pose and this pose. In 15 minutes, you might have 6 or 7 poses instead of one, right? And that's what you want, right? You want the ability to think quickly and draw quickly and iterate quickly, because you're trying to find it's always a search for the best answer, right? Like that's what we're after, is trying to figure out how to get to the best thing possible, you know? Would you agree? Does that sound right to you, Cassandra?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that, Swinley?
No, I think you said it right. I mean, if it's for yourself, maybe I can imagine someone not caring, but as a professional artist, speed matters. You know, it makes a big difference if you take a couple of seconds to produce a pose or an hour, you know, just struggling with one pose. I mean, it's time is money, you know, literally. So if you can do it faster, you can earn more money.
That's true too. You know, I just had a student today that's working on an animated short, you know, same thing, the roller coaster ride of, and, you know, we were talking about the time thing again, you know, we were talking about turnarounds. And this one turnaround she was working on, she was saying like, this takes me hours to get done. I'm like, no, I get it. You know, turnarounds take a while. I remember I'd be happy if I had 2 turnarounds done in a day. So, you know, you figure 4 hours for like a fully complete turnaround. And there were mechs that I had to do turns on that could take 6 to 8 hours to get it right, you know? So, and it's so complicated. That's already going to take time. The last thing you want is your drawing ability to take time as well, you know?
Yeah, speaking about that, I remember that I think about 2 years ago, I worked on a game for a brief moment, and the art director was like, well, we need you to make 3 model sheets in a week. I was like, whoa, right. That sounds crazy. But with force drawing, it's possible because, like you said, I don't have to guess. I know the system, so I could just go and made the deadline. So speed does matter.
I just noticed the chat. We had some questions. Kevin was asking Cassandra, where did you get your ideas for writing scripts for your comic?
Well, it's based on the myth Hades and Persephone from Greek mythology. So I always like the story because I love Greek mythology. But as far as ironing it out, I actually read the book Save the Cat for helping to get the like story flowing and all that go. I think I read a couple of their books on character, so get good character arcs and things like that. But as far as for the inspiration, it's mostly just from the Greek myth of Hades and Persephone.
Yeah, mythology is definitely help invent a lot of stories. That's for sure. For I would say a lot of creative people. All right, let's head back to Photoshop. So, you know, in working with Cassandra in the past, you could see here, this is a stage where the mentee starts taking poses from the models and we start to depart, right? This is the beginning of the experience of learning how to draw from imagination, right? Which is just a tricky jump, right? Very tricky jump, especially since we've been learning from reference at the front end very heavily. And we want to try to, like I said, we want to leave. I always call this the moment of going from obligation to inspiration, right? So here's the obligation changing into inspiration. You can see Cassandra moving successfully, you know, through these drawings, pushing the pose until you got all the way over here, right? Even push this almost like moment of despair out of this pose, right? So one thing led to another, right? Do you remember going through this exercise? Do you have any insight about it?
Yeah, I think I remember when I got to that final one, because like the other ones, I think they're going in a good direction, but I got to the final one, I feel like I just like kind of really got in the zone and really like felt the, I don't know, really pushing the energy, and I felt like it had more character to it. I don't know, I just like got into the pose. As corny as it sounds.
Yeah, no, it's great. Awesome. So Dyston was like, give the people what they want, force fabric. So here's some force fabric for you, Dyston. So this is stuff that, this is work that Cassandra and I have been working on over the last few months, prior obviously to the book coming out, which will be next month. And it's been interesting to see you go through this, and interesting for me to teach it, right? Because we've been writing the books. I haven't had the chance to really, I think, you know, test drive it as much as I'd like to. So it's been really great to see just how effective it's been. I think how quickly you picked it up, right? You know, did you find it easy or difficult?
Because fabric is something I've always, I think, struggled with. I remember when I used to draw clothes and you just like draw a picture of like, you know, model of like someone wearing a sweatshirt. I'm like, I can see the folds. I don't really get what's going on. It took a little bit of a learning curve, but I liked how you taught it, is that you think about how force is moving across the body and how gravity, like how clothes fall and then the tension pulls them. And I think like I still have more to learn, but I think once I got that basic concept, it's a lot easier to dress my figures.
Yeah, all those togas.
Yes.
Lots of draping going on in this comic.
Yes.
Hey, better know fabrics and clothes. So we started here, and then, you know, that's now starting to lead to the comic, right? So let me move all of you to the comic book. The very beginning, you know, so from what I remember in the past, you had already like rough versions of even the comic itself. You and your sister have been working on the writing, and I don't know. I had my own epiphany at that moment of like, whoa, okay, this is pretty big. Like this is a big deal, this project. And I remember, you know, looking at a map that you had brought in, and I think what struck me was, for me, my brain just goes, I need a system. Like I need a system here to understand what's going on, right? And we backed all the way out, and that back out probably was like 2 years ago. Right?
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, we need to do pre-production on this whole story. This was basically like creating a film, you know, like an animated film, let's say. You know, we backed ourselves. You guys are only seeing a very little mini slice here of this sheet, which is relatively new and updated. But it was like, who are the Titans, and what color represents them, right? And who are the gods, right? And what, you know, represents them, and so on and so on and so on, right? And what are the different houses? Because there's different Titans, right? And then what are each of the, you know, what's the vertical column of artistic information between each one of those columns? And then that was one thing. Then there's different races in this world, and they all live in different locations, right? And this map that you had, it's like recreating Lord of the Rings, right? So how was that whole experience for you? Because that was a pretty big deal when we went through that.
Yeah, it's been great, because I know when I first, because I think trying to boil down Greek mythology, and like, because when I first started making the story, like, oh, this guy can do this and this guy can do that, and it just, there's clashing things. When you stopped and said, let's get a system, it actually made world building a lot easier. Because like, for example, like I think when I first started this, I had like 17 different types of powers and things like that. And then when I did more research, like, no, you need to have like a specific system. So I only do 5, which is actually in Greek mythology, which worked out well because the earth, water, wind, fire, and ether. So once we did that, and then finding out like putting symbols to certain titans helped boil that parts down, like, so that there was lineages. And I know a problem I faced with the comics, since the main characters are gods, I want them to be vulnerable, because in Greek mythology they're, you know, immortal. You can't really kill them. So by making the titans, I need to make villains that these gods have to fight that are much stronger than they are. So developing that system and stuff too.
Yeah, I think interestingly, this also led us to not just characters, but, you know, in environments, right? And props and other things, right? Just other things that end up, you know, are going to show up in the comic. You know, I think what I want you all to be aware of here is, my recommendation is, if you're taking on a big project yourself, it's easy to just want to get to dessert, you know, to the juicy bits of it all. But it's really more like a 7-course meal. And you, as the chef, really have to design that meal, right? You have to know, like, what am I trying to say across this story arc, right? From just even a story standpoint to an artistic arc, like a visual arc, like, how does this all work? And I think you said that well, Cassandra, in that the systems really help you work faster. It goes back to understanding the forces of the figure. That's a system. You learn the system and you're going to get really fast at it. You can create an underlying foundation or system for your comic or your film, what have you. Answers will come more quickly, right? Because you've created a foundation and a structure to it. You know? So I'll need your help here on reminding me how this part works. We haven't done this in a while. We've been in the weeds now for a while, so I haven't seen this sort of high level stuff in a long time. So, like, Gaia here is not the only Titan, right? There's what, 3 to 5 of them or more?
There's probably still like 100 of them out there. But she's the Titan I chose because she's the ancestral Titan of the main character, Persephone.
Where does Zeus and those guys live? Are they, I can't remember, those are considered Titans, or are they the same level as Demeter?
They're the same level as Demeter. Their ancestral Titan is Kronos.
Okay. Oh, their ancestral Titan is Kronos. So we did Kronos though, no? Right? So how many Titans Uber Titans did we illustrate?
I think we did 5.
Okay, that's the number I remember, right? Okay, so around 5 of them. And then under each one of them, there's a lineage of different gods, right? So is Demeter considered a god?
Yeah, so it's, I mean, the term I'm using in the comic will be theoi. So I wanted to have like kind of a blanket term that they're kind of, if they were in our, like, they'd be kind of like superheroes, I guess, like in our world. Like, so they have abilities and powers, but if you shot them with an arrow, you could kill them. They're not immortal, like as typical Greek mythology is, but they do have special powers. I have where they can create a weapon, like a magic weapon, out of the magic they have in them. And when they get experienced enough and strong enough, they can turn into a giant beast, which is on the right of Demeter.
So you guys might not notice this, but you can see here is really a scale, right? So here we have the Uber Titan, and this is Demeter, and this is her mega form, I think you've been calling them, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you can see, you get a sense of the size here. So almost like a giant elephant, right? Would be the mega form, maybe even a little bigger than that. All right. And Titan's huge. Titan kind of reminds me of like the characters in Moana, like the scale, and also the character a little bit, right? That lush island that's at the end of the film, right?
Yeah.
That kind of size. Yeah, very cool. So this was where we started, right? So originally you came and you had like some storylines, and then we moved over to doing a ton of art direction. And then that started bringing us into character design, right? So here you have Hades and Persephone. This is an old design and then a more updated design. So what changed in here for you?
Well, I think a lot of I think the like design, I don't know, and that they I like that they contrast so much, because I really wanted to emphasize that Hades is from the underworld, Persephone is from this lush, beautiful land, and like when they stand next to each other, they look like they don't actually belong. I want Hades to be angular and hard, and Persephone to be more curly and soft and more carefree. And her appearance will change as she gets used to her role in the underworld. But I liked seeing them together. Yeah, and then putting the symbols on. So, for example, on Hades, like the curl on his that Greek motif that's on his like tunic is the curl that'll appear. That's from his ancestral Titan Kronos, and then Persephone has the symbol of Gaia on her dress. So, like, really, I think it was helpful to theme up the story. So there's cohesion.
Yeah. I want to just call out something you mentioned briefly at the beginning, which is you started talking about design rules, right? Like the curliness and flowiness of her versus his more pointy angularity, right? So there's no accident here that not only in the obvious, like color, are they different, right, of one another. You have red and green, basically, and black and white too, right? So they're polar opposites. And that was a creative choice, that Cassandra is making these decisions consciously, and that we talked about shape and design and the meanings of shape and design. And, we talked about composition and how that, that works there as well, right? So these are all things that you can see she's bringing into the work, right? It seems like, Swenley, you've got the chat going, right?
Yes.
Okay. I see Thomas said the new Hades design is far sharper, and his robe is a cool mosaic motif pushed into it. Loves it. All right. Thomas loves your new Hades.
Thanks.
Yeah, very cool. Okay. And now I brought this in here. Here's Persephone. Just an example of, more direct example of seeing how learning force and figure drawing actually does help in more than just learning how to draw the figure, right? The end goal doesn't have to be, I just love drawing, from photographs, right? Here, the end goal is that Cassandra has taken the skills that she learned in the mentorship and turned it into her characters moving, right? So this would be, if this is a portfolio for a job, this would be probably one pose on a pose sheet with numerous poses, right? So for her here, this was a great way of, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but for you sort of stretching your skills here and seeing, like, how would Persephone fight, right? What does this look like? Any thoughts on this from you, Cassandra? Like, I guess you've already said, this was, you've learned to draw faster because of this, right? I'd say, if anything, what's helped here is look how dramatic you've learned to draw the characters, right? Yeah,
and I think actually the pose on the drawing, I think it actually came from just doing my sketching during the day, because I was more of a male figure. I was like, oh, I really like this pose. I've been trying to get a fighting pose for Persephone anyways. So then I adapted it, and because I like the drama in the pose and the torque of her winding up with her weapons.
Yeah, very cool. I like all the flowiness again and the design of the hair, It, again, those of you that may not be aware of this, there's still forced shape going on in here. It's very easy to make something like hair not appealing, but there's a lot of straight to curves and rhythms that are happening in the hair and the flow of the hair to make it this appealing, right? I like all the strong angles you have going on, the opposing angles, a lot of good C-torso force going on, the flowing of the robes, right? It's all really good. Let's see. Here's Hades, right? Yeah, so tell us what you're trying to portray with this Hades pose.
Well, I want to show him obviously obviously he's angry, getting ready to fight. And I think for this illustration, I think I wanted to show that he's getting charged up. I think I was going to show fire and stuff, maybe appearing at his feet. And I liked him being bent over because it's more aggressive, and And I like that I liked the idea of his spear coming towards the camera. Well, it's coming towards out front of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like the directness of this, versus this. And to your point, I like the scale that you played with here of this all coming forward. And you could see that Cassandra knows her perspective. You could see the blocking out that she was doing in there. It's never, maybe it has, I don't recall if I brought this up, but his outfit, this all feels very much to me like a volcano. Like everything is kind of, shooting upward, right? And he's the top of this mountain, basically, with what the bottom part of his outfit looks like, which is pretty cool. Yeah, and again, as we talked about earlier, the motifs really help. It's like the shaping of his staff, the idea of how the helmet or headpiece or his horns work, and then I know he's going to get that gold piece over here, once more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wide angled feet really help. The fact that you bent him forward, as you were saying, good construction in here going on, right? I love the fact that the arm's shooting back in space. There's a lot of different skills going on in here from a figure drawing sense that now Cassandra's moving over to drawing from imagination, right? In order to get as rich a pose as this as possible. So really cool. I haven't heard from you, Swenley. Anything you want to add to the conversation?
I think the pose is great. Great silhouettes, good sense of weight as well. It will be very easy to make this character look like he's going to fall on his face, and the feet are well rounded. So, yeah, great display of skill here. Awesome.
I think also something to again, it's sort of a thing that may be obvious, but I'm going to call it out because I think it's super important, is the way that Cassandra's working. It's clear, but not clean, right? Like you could see all the work that's underneath this. So just the ability to sketch, right? For those of you that are starting off with wanting to learn how to draw, the common mistake is to draw to finish, immediately. And you could see here that even with Cassandra's skill, you could see the roughness of the drawing and like the construction, for instance, of the head of the spear, for instance, still doing that, and giving yourself the freedom to build up forms and shapes and forces before you tie it down, right? That's like a whole other stage, right? Cassandra went through a whole other stage after these to clean them up and color them, right? And that I would imagine those stages probably even take longer than this does, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so keep in mind, everyone, sketch it out, right? It goes all the way back to the start of today's conversation, where one of the superpowers of learning how to, draw with force is that you get to draw fast, right? You can make really, really quick decisions. So I think super important. I wanted to go back to this one.
In the chats.
Yeah, go ahead.
Gavin is asking, where do you get your ideas for creature design? By using established templates or through combining different animal anatomies?
I usually, I don't use templates. I do usually get ideas from, so for example, with Demeter, I went through it's a Greek site called theoi.com. I was reading about what features does Demeter been associated with, and it was usually it was mentioned like lions, what was the other ones? Boars. And I was thinking that just even combining like a lion and a boar was kind of an interesting idea. And then just kind of sewing ideas in between. Like she's also associated with grain, so I wanted to make her mane kind of like more plant-like instead of like, actually a lion's mane. And usually when I'm getting an idea for animals, I just get my sketchbook and just kind of rough out ideas, and then I'll check it with anatomy later on. But I want to if I want it to be big or something like that, I'll kind of start with an idea of like a lion, so make everything bigger and stronger. If it's faster, I might think of more like a wolf or a cheetah or something with thinner legs. And then I do a rough sketch first, and then I'll check it with anatomy with real references afterwards.
I think to re-clarify Kevin's question, I think what he means by templates is like, you know, like the animal drawing templates. And I'd say, yes, all of them work off of animals and the flow of the animal, but it's not like you're working off of a template specifically of like, this is how I'm going to create this animal. I'm going to draw this animal, right? But they do all have that fluidity, you know, running through them. As you'll see, we have a bunch of creature stuff coming up, Kevin, so you'll get to see more of that. Let's see, let's head back. So I want to just go to Persephone once more, just before we leave and move forward. So, you know, I just want to call out again the connection between this and how this is all working, you know, and that we have all these rhythms that are helping even underneath the clothing, of course, which is really important. So you can see that the clothes are all attached to the body and how that's flowing. I really like the cleverness too of this abstraction of just this angle to this angle, you know, like that. To me, I'm sensitive to the idea of how angles, you know, relate to one another. So that's very different than saying like one sword is like this and one is like this, right? That relationship is a different relationship than the perpendicularity that she created here, you know, the sort of strength and power that comes out of that. And then to have all of that, almost a 90-degree thing going on here with these swords, contrasted, you know, to the fluidity of all of this, right? So again, more of the subtle nuances, I guess I'm just trying to point out to you guys that go into creating these designs, you know. And then the way our mentorship sessions usually go is, in the past, what Cassandra would do is maybe come in with a sketch and I'd be like, oh, watch the silhouette here, let's push this here and so on if there's a form issue or a force issue. Then you come in with like a tighter drawing, you know, we'd go through approval on that, and then basically you would move to color, right? So we'd go in phases. So every session is always through a phase. And what I do with all the students when it comes to these kinds of more project-based mentorships is I kind of try to help as like the art director in a sense, and teach the student how to be their own AD, right? Which is why you went through all that process. But my point to this is we go in like phases. You know, I make sure with every student, I'm not like, hey, next week, you know, I know you haven't worked on Persephone's fighting pose yet. I want you to come in with this, right? Like we never do that, right? Because this takes a lot of time, right? It takes a long time to create a fleshed out illustration like this, all the way to color and clean line. So, you know, we start with the roughs, right? I want to see what the gesture is that you're after. We want to make sure the posing is good, the clothing is good, right? It's all these like steps before we get there. And that's the same thing that happens in production. So it gives a student that may not have had a full-time job in the entertainment industry yet, like understand this is how things work, right? This is what would be asked for you. Now, Cassandra isn't necessarily looking to go into, you know, a job versus working on her comic, but I would go through the same thing either way, right? Like this, I want either student to get a taste of like, this is the flow of things, right? Anything you want to add to that, Cassandra?
Yeah, well, because you mentioned silhouette, and I think because that was something I had never thought of before I had mentorship with you. And it's funny how much now I do think about it, even when I'm doing sketches in my book, how important it is to show character and readability. And yeah, something I never thought of before, and I think it's actually helped develop these characters quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think that probably also led to, as Thomas said earlier, you know, good shape design, right? Being aware of shapes and their silhouettes. I don't think we have this image here today, but I remember you would come in with a wolf, like a wolf-like character at one point. And to me, that was like a very defining moment in your mentorship. It was like, whoa, you're getting shape, like this abstraction of shape and how that starts combining with form, you know? And to me, when I look at the character designs like Hades and Persephone, to me, that's the big change here. You know, I don't know if this will make sense to you guys out there, but when I look at these, there's sort of the average character design where everything is kind of rounded out. It's all the same, right? It's like this homogeny that's happening in there. And then all of a sudden, the new designs, it's clarity, right? It's like so much more sophisticated and defined, you know, and the change between the two of them, right? The contrast is massive, right? And those are all conscious decisions that an artist makes based on how much they understand art, right? It's like, in order to be able to pull off that change, we had to even think about triangles and rectangles and S's and flow and color theory, right? Like all of that stuff. So I think it's just amazing to see the growth, between this to this. It's more graphic, right? It's more has more graphic design in it. So really, really awesome. Anything you want to add to that, Mr. Swinley?
Sorry, I was busy with the chat. What was your question?
If there's anything you want to add about the change in the graphic designness from her older versions to the newest.
Yeah, I think the key word there is design. I think a lot of artists go as far as learning how to draw, and they can draw really well, but they don't learn how to design. And that makes a huge difference in what you're able to express in your ideas. So yeah, that's the main difference that I see here.
Yeah, it's a funny word, design. I know if I were sitting in the audience and I was new, I'd be like, what are they talking about? Right? It's like, it's designed. Well, design to me is really about conscious decisions. You're making conscious decisions based on the tools of art, right? And when you're newer to the game, you don't know all the tools. It's like, maybe you're working on a construction site and you just learn about a hammer and a nail, but the other guy has got a nail gun, right? And he's got a power drill, and he's doing all these things. He's able to work faster because he knows all these tools, and he can build better things more quickly because of his understanding of even the math and triangles and all these other things, right? So, you learn the tricks. If you're doing construction for 3 years, you would just learn how to swing a hammer better. You'd be able to get a nail into a piece of wood in one shot instead of 10 hits. All that stuff, gives you this improvement. And, one of the simple things, just to kind of simplify this conversation, is just understanding shape, the meaning of shape, right? In fact, I think I just did a thing for Proco on shape design, like the emotions behind shapes, right? So all these shapes have different meanings, they mean different things to us as human beings, and again, I think that adds this new level of sophistication. These feel like characters that you dressed up and they have some gear on them, but these suddenly feel designed. It feels like, whoa, okay, there's more abstraction going on here. There's a different conscious artist in this space compared to this space. They're muddier in a way. That's what I mean. They're homogenized, they're generalized, and the clarity I think that's going on here really adds sophistication to the whole piece. All right, so let's see, we got up here another, force drawing. So the centaurs, of course, in your world, right? And I love here that you have him doing something. It's not just a centaur, but we have a centaur pulling this tree trunk, it looks like, right? Or tree, tree trunk. Lots of great force going on here, right? Really awesome, diagonal happening here. So how are you using this for yourself? What's the point of this to you, this illustration?
I did this sketch because I was trying to figure out how centaurs lived and kind of everyday life and things. And then I wanted to illustrate how strong centaurs are, like because those logs and stuff weigh a ton, and I liked, like with the angle you drew, I liked having the force of the human torso going through the horse leg. I thought was actually really kind of fun to blend human and horse anatomy. It's fun.
Yeah, and that's, as I drew, like you're saying, these arrows here, it's so dynamic to see this almost 45-degree angle going on here against that big curve at the top, right? So you got this great applied force, pushing itself up into the shoulders, and you got that angle versus this angle, right? So pulling all of this, along. So that's another thing, obviously, we talk about mentorship is story, right? You have some story-driven illustration, going on, and how even drawing with force is helping performance, right? That you're giving us a performance here through this character. Yeah, very cool. And again, I have to say, I like the way it's being drawn. It's loose, but not sloppy, and it's kind of clean, but it's not a cleanup. right? You're in this really great working environment, this workspace, you know. Do you remember how you used to work before? Did you always work roughly, or did you find that in your past before we started working together, did you go cleaner faster, or is this something that was natural for you?
I think I've always been a little bit more messy.
Mhm.
I know, well, there was when I was younger, I would do very neat, like, drawings, like edges and stuff. And I think when I learned that you can draw through stuff, then I think kind of
Mhm.
draw a little bit more messy, I would say.
Mhm. Messy, thoughtful. Yes. But here's Demeter, right? She's one of the main characters. She's Persephone's mom, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And this is her newest design, right? And how she
Yeah.
actually ties in with Persephone as well, right? Who's down here. Let's bring her in here. So you could start seeing there's also the relationship between, mother and daughter and what they look like relative to one another, right? And you had actually Persephone and Hades here. Maybe that's even a better thing to look at. So here we have Demeter, and you can see how the green is carrying through, and she deals with nature, from what I recall, right?
Yeah.
You also have the motif running along the bottom of both of them, right? So you can really start feeling visually, right, the connectivity between all these relationships. Again, this all is work, guys. Like, none of this is an accident. I keep trying to make sure you guys understand how much time Cassandra and I have put into this, literally over a year, I would say, of us working on this and getting all this pre-production set up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that gets us finally over here, right? So this is an older version. This is Demeter as a megaform, right? What you call a
Mhm.
megaform,
Yeah.
right? So this is the old version of her, and this is the latest, right? So we've gone from this kind of a smoother, more simple creature, I would say, to this one, right? And you were sharing with me yesterday. In fact, yesterday we met for your session. What was the reasoning behind the change?
Um, yeah, the reason why I made the change is because Demeter has a very big personality and very ferocious. So I want her to, I mean, she's usually refined, but if she gets angry or something, she's very big and she controls a room if as a human. So when she comes out as a beast, I really don't want her to feel big and strong and heavy and um very
Powerful.
ferocious. Yeah.
Yeah, and without giving too much away, we meet her pretty early on, right, in the story. So we wanted to really try to like nail down her look and feel, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, really cool. Any thoughts, Swenley?
Well, Camilo asked in the chats, how do you make different characters feel like they belong into the same world?
Good question. You want to try to feel that, Cassandra? How do you make different
Yeah.
characters feel like they're in the same world?
Yes.
Mhm.
So like different characters, like contrasting characters feel like they're part of the same world, or
I would just say
uh,
all of them in general, right?
yeah.
Like, yeah.
I think what's helped with that has been the theming him up. Like so, for example, like doing the symbols and colors, like for Demeter. So if she's like next to someone like Hades or Kronos' children, it'd be red and green. The contrasting the symbols, even the clothing styles will be different, like different types of fashion. And like when you see these guys too, they'll be around like I'd say like peasants. The peasants will have more muddy colors and things like that. And I really want like everyone around Demeter's world that her people and stuff she works around are like more browns and tans and things. And so when she's wearing green, that she feels more prominent. And yeah, I think um, having the motifs actually has helped a lot because even though besides motifs, like for the patterns, I've been trying to get different like clothing styles in for regions so that all kind of ties together. And I've been really pulling from like just Greek clothing and Greek motifs to try and unify everything because they all were all from a real region. So I think they kind of feel cohesive.
I think I'd to even simplify the answer a little bit more. One of the things that just ties everything together, it's like, how do we know this is Cassandra's work, right? You know, there's certain things that you've done across all the characters, and this one goes back to the beginning. We had to decide, like, what is the line work going to look like, right? It's like, oh, the line work is the same across this and all these characters, right? It's not like some characters are really fat, thick to thin lines, and some are really thin. You know, are they of singular thickness, or do they have tapered line? Color, like, is there a place in saturation we just don't ever go to, you know, or in contrast levels that we may never go to, right? So I'd say at that very, very high top level, a lot of that stuff was also figured out, especially the line, right? It's like getting that line down and figuring out what the look and feel is. So I hope that helps answer the question, but you'll notice there's not style change that's going on. It's more about context. We have characters and creatures from all over Cassandra's world going on here, but there isn't a massive, you know, there's no style change, you know, it's contextual change, right? So that really helps keep everything in the same world, right? It's almost like I was just thinking of Spider-Verse, right? So in Spider-Verse, there's a great example of, in the first one, you know, you meet these characters from all these different Spider-Verses and they're totally different styles, right? So that's what you're trying to figure out at the very beginning. What is a way that I'm going to be okay working also, right? Like, how do I work best? What's the look I'm after? Because I'm going to be potentially on this project. Cassandra could be on this for the next 10 years, right? Right, Cassandra?
Yeah.
She's like, holy shit, what did I sign up for? Yeah, this could be the rest of your life. I have no idea, right? Like this, because this, for all I know, this could end up becoming a TV show or a film, and you know, she becomes the next Martin, right? Like all of a sudden, this is Game of Thrones, or who knows, right? I have no idea. You know, it's happened, right? Comics become movies and TV shows, so I have no clue where that's going to go. And this could take over the next, like I said, 10, 20 years of your life, right? So anyway, style, you know, my point to all you guys is style, you know, you want to think about what your line and so on is going to be and how you like working. And it's fine if it changes. I'm not saying that, like, Cassandra hopefully will keep growing. So it's not like she's stuck with this, you know, forever. She's going to keep improving, but that's okay, right? Picasso went through all of his periods also, right? All right. Yesterday we had a conversation about the emblem, for instance, right? So I had a note for her more about this emblem is, this motif is symmetrical, right? So we were talking then about maybe we should move to the head, right? Some other part of the body that has symmetry in it to make it feel like it fits better, you know, onto the anatomy of Demeter in her mega form, right? All right, let's keep going here. Here's some other characters that you've gone through. So this was Apollo's old design, and then you led us to this new one, right? And I think you were telling me it's because you made a shift in color and, you know, going down those columns again, right? We have a whole slew of a family where red is their thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that even the first one was actually I made before we had all the rules dialed down. And as I got on, I'm like, wait, he can't be wearing blue and gold because of the rules we made. And I was like, so I had to do a new character design, because what's kind of cool about making the rules for your world is it actually changes the story. It has changed elements of the story.
Yeah.
And it's actually been better. I mean, I like that Apollo, and because he was Apollo's Zeus's son. Zeus is the king of my world. So it's kind of fun to have the whole royal family wear red. So when they appear on scene, that they're center of the attention. So it worked out better too.
Yeah, very cool. So these guys were the winds, right? Are these guys at north, south, east, and west?
Mm-hmm.
These four?
Yeah.
And so what's going on down here?
So these are villains. The ones on the bottom will be kind of all their little underlings. And they kind of do their bidding. So they're kind of like little, I don't know, just like little cronies for the four wind brothers.
So these guys down here wear these masks, the horse masks.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And these guys represent each of the major directions.
Yeah.
So, we don't have time to get into this today, but each one of these characters is based off of its wind, and there's a write-up for these characters. We knew who they were, and the visuals that you're seeing come from those written descriptions, right? It's not like you just kind of spit them out, right? They look like this for a reason, right? Everybody's got a different personality, and hopefully you see that, there's a different look and feel to each one of these guys, right? So that was something that, we worked on. I remember going through this with you. This was, many mentorship sessions of nailing these guys down,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. We've got Pegasi here. Can't have Greek mythology without these guys, right?
Yeah.
How are these separated? Are they by different worlds?
Yeah, they're from different regions. So like one's from the polar area, one's from the desert, one's from forest, one's from the jungle, and one's comes out at night.
Yeah, this poor guy. He's a tan. Looks like he got run over by a Mack truck. He's all wrecked in the feathers, right? Very cool. It's as you just said, it's pretty clear which one of these comes from what region, right? So again, it's not an accident that happens. It should be obvious, right? We should be able to tell about polar, sand, forests, jungle, and the nighttime guy, right? Yeah. And this kind of goes to Kevin's question. Yeah, you can see these are all based off of ungulates, right? So animals with hooves in this case, right? From like deer to horses, right? How did you come up with, so what's his mix? Tell us a little bit about our deranged guy here at the end.
So he's mixed on, I think, an owl, a vulture, and horse anatomy. Yeah, for him, I want to do a horse with the forward-facing eyes, because that'd also be creepy, not just the big orange eyes, because horses are on the side of the head. So I wanted to have like the skull with the forward-facing eyes. That would just be really creepy. Yeah, I just thought that'd be kind of a fun take on a Pegasus.
Yeah. I was just at the zoo on Monday with actually another mentee that was here for like face-to-face mentorship, and there was I can't remember, it was in a lemur exhibit, so I don't know if it must be a monkey that's part of like the lemur class, and it kind of looked like that. Its face was like super creepy. It looked constantly suspicious. It was like looking at you and looked totally suspicious of you, and its eyes were very piercing and perfectly round with like no expression, It was really creepy, actually, to tell you the truth, and it reminds me very much of what this face looks like. We had a question here from Turian I wanted to try to answer. How do you gauge which rules of character or world design are the most important? So Turian, my answer to that would be the simpler the tool, the more important it is, So when I was art directing in games, I would go through like line, shape, tone, color, and so on, right? So right there at the very beginning is line and the kinds of lines you're going to use, and then how they start to develop shape. So right there, that's some of the most important stuff you have to tackle and figure out, right? And that starts to affect the look and feel, of the world. And then you get into this other stuff that Cassandra and us have been talking about with, families and colors and different motifs, and, that it's Greek also, right? So the whole Greek thing is a giant umbrella over all of this, right? That helped Cassandra get into at least a certain space, In the sense of beginning a project like this, was that already answered in the beginning of the stream? No, not to that specificity. So hopefully I answered your question. I would say it's, like I said, line, shape, and tone, and color, right, are like the four big pillars right off the start to consider. Okay, let's see here. Almost out of time, and we have a couple of pieces of art I still want to talk about. I love this one. All right, so this is Amen. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Mm-hmm.
This was a lot of fun because we had the opportunity to go through a transformation, right? And you could feel the sort of thrusting force of the character's back as he opens up and changes into this new creature, kind of like a werewolf, right? Yeah, so tell me a little bit about the character and what the process was like in creating this.
Yeah, so this was actually earlier on, before I actually picked the Greek story. This is from a different story idea I had. But this one was really fun. Because remember when I started with you, I had, because then you said, oh, you should do a shape-shifting, see what it looks like. And then I was like, oh, I should do it in motion. And then once I did the next one, like, oh, we should do this and add more, like I remember the second post specifically. I think when I first drew it, the hair was down. You're like, no, you should have it bunching up, like, and then it bursts out. And like through the collaborative process, I felt like we got so much energy into that. You can actually feel the force of this guy changing. It was pretty fun to do.
Yeah, I really love the abstraction that's holding this all together. And to your point, it's really just force. It's like he's like this, it's getting built up, and then it opens, right? And as it opens, you can see the continuation of this kind of flowing into this stance, right? So this is really cool thing that's going on here until it explodes, and this is all like one giant flow. So it really holds, together the composition of the page, the composition of the transformation is held together with the abstraction of force as a device underneath it, Yeah, it's really cool. Seems like Dark Knight likes it too. Dark Knight said, damn, that's cool. Cool. All right, we're nearing the end. I had Cassandra send this in because I wanted you guys to see that, again, it's not only just force drawing that we talk about in mentorship, and it's not only now you guys realize, hopefully, that we also take on big projects. We help students, achieve their goals. But we talk about composition and design. We talk about storytelling, Amongst Swanley Murtunjay and I, we've covered pretty much all the bases when it comes to the jobs out there. So we're able to support you guys with all of this. So this is one of the earlier pages in the comic. And you can see here that Cassandra's using all those tools. First of all, I have to say a great headspace again, right? That this is roughed out, clear enough to see, and yet not super clean, right? It's sketched, right? So good like workspace, good composition, perspective, focal point, right? Like all those different things are coming together in an effort to draw this, right? And then I wanted to close off today with, last but not least, this is one of our older pieces that we worked on together, but it was one of the more finished ones, because we haven't gotten to color on the comic book itself yet, right? We're just starting to rough out all the pages, right? So, but this was fun. I think it was we did like a deep dive. In games, this used to be called a vertical slice, right? It's like taking a level and go, let's just finish a level so we can really see what things look like and if there's any problems that we have. And this was, I had a really good time like creating this with you and, figuring out the composition and the lighting and the relationship. And now for me, it's cool because I can look back at this and go, wow, this has more meaning. Now I really get it, because we've gone through so much of the story together and all the characters. And I'm like, wow, you already had that in your head, and for me, I was just like working on this painting at that moment with you, and we had Cerebus right in the back over there. Cerberus, I should say, right? Kind of hiding out so you could see very subtly. This is a tough painting to pull off too, because, if you don't have the brightness up on your monitor right now, you won't see the nuance of tonal values going on in the background here with these caves and stalactites and stalagmites, and also all of this stuff, the skeletons coming out of the river Styx, right? And yet there's this like whole little issue going on between Hades and Persephone, right? Yeah, it's sort of a classic romance moment in a very non-classic environment. Right? Yeah, especially with the skeletons hanging out around us. Let's see, any questions before we close up? Dark Knight said really loves the composition. Constantinus asked, is that the river Styx? Yes, it is. Turian, the amount of story packed in this is so dense, super cool. Let's see. Great work, Cassandra. Very inspiring. Thank you for sharing. My favorite Greek god would have to be Hercules. So many other characters. I don't know if we have Hercules. I haven't seen him, right? Do we even touch him?
No.
Yeah.
I don't
no
know if he'll
Hercules.
be in it or not. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Cassandra, for coming out today and sharing with us all the work that you've been doing on this amazing comic. I think what we'll do is we'll have Cassandra back at some point in the future when we launch the first comic, right? I think you originally wanted to do this as a web comic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it'll start there. And yeah, when we come around to that, we'll probably give you guys a little bit of a preview of the actual pages themselves. So we'll keep you posted. Thank you, Swenley. It's great having you and, you know, getting your advice on this and your input. And we will see you guys next Friday. Take care. Thanks again. Thank you.
See you guys. Bye.
See ya. Okay, we're out.